All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice exam series. This is exam number 7, and we're going through the next set of questions together. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and practice exams. When you pass, let us know so we can include you on the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's keep going. 19. A group of friends decide to stay overnight in a house that is supposedly haunted. They are all staying upstairs when suddenly they hear a crash downstairs. The group starts panicking except for David, who says there must be a simple explanation for that noise. What philosophical assumption is most represented here? So we have a philosophical assumption question. When we're dealing with our dimensions and our assumptions, the first thing you want to do when studying is make sure you're not confusing the two. We have our 7 dimensions and then we have our assumptions. They're very different things, even though they cross over, they're different things. So that's number one. Number two, you have to practice answering these questions because they want you to be very precise when picking your assumptions because many of the assumptions are going to start to bleed together and they can be very similar at times. So you want to be very precise. So what do we know so far about our assumption? Well, his friends are staying overnight in a house that is haunted. They're upstairs and they hear a crash downstairs. The group panics, except David, who says there's a simple explanation for that noise. Now, that phrase, simple explanation, gives this one away. And why is that? Well, because there's one assumption that implores us to always go for the simplest explanation first. And what is that? A, empiricism. Well, it's not going to be empiricism because empiricism involves observation. David didn't necessarily observe whatever the crash was, but he's using a different assumption to try and explain or reason with that noise. What about philosophical doubt? Is David doubting any preconceived notion or preconceived idea? Not really. No one's saying anything against what David is implying here, that it's a simple explanation for that noise. He's not doubting that there's something else going on. He's just saying there is an explanation here. So he's not necessarily engaging in philosophical doubt. What David is doing is he's exercising parsimony. And parsimony says the simplest explanation is the one we should choose first. You always want to be parsimonious in practice because more often than not, and you'll be surprised, the simplest explanation really is the best explanation. And it's the easiest route to take to begin, if in your case, as a BCBA, your intervention. But in this case, David's being very parsimonious here by saying, okay, there's a simple explanation for that noise. Why is D wrong? Well, D is not an assumption. Once again, we've got to be very careful about, are we dealing with dimensions or are we dealing with assumptions? In this case, David's being very parsimonious. The philosophical assumption here is parsimony. Mr. Reynolds sits across one of his students and hands the student a green sticker. He asks the boy to go place the sticker on an item of the same color. If the boy is able to complete this task, what will be reflected as long as the boy does not match to another green sticker? All right, the question is asking about the boy's actions and what's going to be demonstrated here. Now, what is the boy doing? Well, he's matching to sample. And so when we're talking about matching to sample, you should start thinking stimulus equivalence, reflexivity, symmetry, and transitivity. Now, in this case, what are we demonstrating? Well, Mr. Reynolds gave the boy a green sticker. So if we're labeling this, green sticker is A. He asked the boy to go place the sticker on an item of the same color. The item of the same color would be B. Now, if the boy is able to complete this task, what will be reflected as long as the boy does not match to another green sticker? Well, if he matches to another green sticker, then we have reflexivity because therefore A equals A. In this case, though, we're going to take that green sticker and go match it to an item of the same color, demonstrating A equals B. And so if that boy matches the green sticker A to an item B, we're not going to have reflexivity, which is A equals A. It'll be more akin to symmetry. A equals B, therefore B equals A. Transitivity, of course, is that highest level where the A equals B equals C is derived from learning that A equals B, B equals A, and then the learner naturally picks up and associates A equals C. Of course, we're not that far down the line here. We have only gotten to symmetry, where the boy has a green sticker. He's going to match it to the item of the same color. Therefore, A equals B. B equals A, even though we didn't necessarily reverse it here. What's most demonstrated is going to be B, symmetry. Felix engages in tantrums several times per day, typically to escape from a task demand. These tantrums always involve crying, screaming, and rolling on the floor, but are often more mild in the morning and the evening. What aspect of the tantrums changes regularly? We're looking at the tantrums specifically and what is changing about these tantrums. Now, this isn't an overly difficult question. And so, as always, with our easier questions, how are we going to approach it? Well, we're going to trust our preparation. We're not going to overthink it. We're going to pick the best answer. We're going to move on. There's a lot of questions on this exam, and not all of them are going to be overly difficult. So when you get an easy question, consider that just a softball or a free point. Pick the best answer, move on. In this case, we're looking at the tantrums, which happen several times per day, typically to escape from a task demand. So we have our function, escape. Then we have our topography because they involve crying, screaming, and rolling on the floor. What's changing though? Well, often the tantrums are more mild in the morning and the evening, meaning early morning, late evening, the tantrums have less what? Because they're more mild during those times, meaning in the afternoon, let's say, they're less mild. So what's changing here? Is the function changing? Well, not necessarily. We just have escape here, right? This is typically to escape from a task demand. There's no other function mentioned here. So that's typical that it's for escape. The function is not changing on the regular. What about magnitude? How does magnitude relate to function and topography? Well, function's why it happens. Topography is what it looks like. And magnitude is going to be the intensity. So when we talk about loud or soft, hard, mild, intense, big, small, these are all magnitude words. And so when we're talking mild versus, let's say, severe, that's magnitude. So the aspect of the tantrums that are changing is that magnitude. Now, why is it not the topography? Well, they always involve crying, screaming, and rolling on the floor. And those aren't more defined. So all we know is it has crying, screaming, and rolling, and they always involve that. So the topography is not necessarily changing. What's changing is that intensity. It can go from mild in the morning and the evening to more severe, maybe in the afternoon. Rate, of course, is a measurement. We're not measuring anything here. We don't have a frequency. We don't have a time component. So the aspect of the tantrum that is changing regularly is going to be the magnitude. That's our intensity. Again, think about those words. Big, small, hard, soft, loud, quiet. These magnitude, these intensity words. In this case, mild versus, let's say, severe. A behavior analyst is reviewing a month's worth of data with one of their technicians. The behavior analyst observes a couple of sessions prior and agrees that all the data taken that month reflect what is occurring during session, but the technician did not actually take data on the behavior that they were supposed to be observing during that month. What is lacking with this data? Long question. We want to be sure we understand what the question is giving us, and it's why we always attack the question first before getting to the answer choices. So this question wants us to figure out what's lacking in the data. What's wrong with this data? What makes good data? Good data are accurate, meaning you are recording exactly what is occurring in the moment for that behavior or that response. Good data are reliable, meaning you can take that data the same way and get the same thing over and over and over again. Good data are valid, meaning you're measuring what you intend to measure. And then good data have inter-observer agreement, meaning two or more people agree on those measurements. Now, what do we know about this particular data? Well, this analyst, after reviewing a month's worth of data, which is a lot of data, and then also observing a couple of sessions prior, agree the data reflect what is occurring during session. So those data reflect what is actually occurring during session. That means this data are accurate because whatever that number is or whatever the measurement is accurately depicting what is taking place during session. So that's good. On top of that, the analyst observed the sessions as well, meaning we have two different people getting the same data, the same result. So this data do have inter-observer agreement. So now we have to ask ourselves, are the data reliable and are they valid? Well, we've got a month's worth of data. The behavior analyst observed a few sessions, meaning this technician is able to take the same data and get the same results over and over again. So the data are reliable. The problem is the technician didn't actually take data on the behavior they were supposed to be observing during that month, meaning you've got this great data, it's accurate, it has inter-observer agreement, just not valid because they weren't taking data on what they were supposed to be taking data on. So let's, for instance, say they were supposed to be taking data on screaming, and instead they were taking data on running away. Well, now you have really good running away data. It's just not valid because you need data on screaming. So that's an issue. So what exactly is lacking with this data? Well, not accuracy. The data appears to be accurate. It's reliable. We're getting the same thing for a month worth of data. It has inter-observer agreement because the analyst agrees with the data. It's just not valid. We measured and recorded the wrong thing. A group of early educators are observed responding to problem behavior in the classroom. Almost none of the educators made environmental modifications during observation. However, after watching a short professional developmental video, almost all of the educators started to make modifications. Only the educators who watched the video started to make modifications. This procedure likely has what? Let's think about this. We're looking at this procedure and it's worded a little difficult. So let's think about it. We have these educators who observed responding to behavior and they're not making modifications. So here comes our experiment or intervention. And so let's say our dependent variable is making modifications. And so after they watch the video, they start to make modifications. So the videos are independent variable. They watch the video and then it changes and they start making modifications. So the dependent variable changed. But only the educators who watched the video started to make modifications. Why is that important? Why is it important to clarify that only educators who contacted the independent variable changed their behavior? Well, because that strengthens our experiment. Our entire goal is to gain functional control over behavior. We want experimental control over our behavior of interest. And so, if only the participants who contacted our intervention change their behavior, that means we have pretty good control over that behavior. So, what does this procedure likely have? A, external validity. Well, external validity implies we're generalizing our experiment or the experiment's being replicated in a different setting in a different way. There's no indication we've generalized yet or that it's being replicated. What we're showing here is a good sense of internal validity, meaning more than likely that video is leading to the behavior change. Our independent variable is more than likely changing that dependent variable, which is great. Attrition means you're losing participants. We have no real indication that participants were dropping out. And then confounding variables. Confounds would be almost the opposite here. If we had an issue where educators who watched the video and educators who didn't watch the video all made modifications, we'd have to figure out why that was. And more than likely, we'd have a confound. We'd have a variable we weren't controlling affecting our dependent variable, which is not what you want. In this case, however, we don't have that. Our independent variable is affecting and changing our dependent variable, which is exactly what we want. So this procedure more than likely has internal validity. Which of the following statements is not considered a flaw in group research design when compared to single subject design research? So when we think about group design research, that's your typical psychological research. You have a big group of intervention participants, and you've got a big group of control participants, and you do the intervention and you compare the two groups. That's your typical group design. Single subject, which is what we do in ABA and which you need to really know, you've got a single person or participant and they're acting as their own control. So you're comparing their past result to their future result to their present results. Even in things like multiple baseline, where we've got many participants in our, let's say, chart or intervention, we're still comparing that subject's data to their own data. And so there are some flaws in group design which single subject can capitalize on. What is not considered a flaw? Remember, it's the not question. What is not considered a flaw in group design research? A, group design research may often mask individual performances by participants. Well, that's absolutely a flaw. If you have 100 participants and they're all in this one intervention group, you're really going to take the average of all those performances. And so individual performances get lost for the greater overall performance of the group. So A is a flaw. B, group design research may only give an average of the entire group's performance. Just like we talked about in answer choice A, you're only really getting the average of the entire group's performance. You're not necessarily breaking it down by participants, which is an advantage of single subject. C, group design research may mask variability in collected data. That is also a flaw. When you have single subject and you've got one participant and you're taking data on that participant, you can quite clearly see that variability in all your collected data. With group design, the more participants you have in a group, it's going to be a lot harder to see any variability because, again, you're only taking that average. So, actually, all of these are considered flaws in group design research. Now, your focus is single subject design and our different ways we conduct single subject design research, but you do want to be familiar with what is group design and why do we use single subject instead of group design in ABA? What are our advantages over group design for using the single subject experimental design? All right, thank you for watching. Be sure to check out behavioranalyststudy.com. Subscribe for all of our videos. We've got 3 videos a week for BCBAs. We also have videos for RBTs, so be sure to spread the word about that. Let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.